Welcome to the hidden corners where truth and terror collide. Discover a realm where the lines between the living and the supernatural blur as you embark on a journey to the paranormal and visit the mysterious hidden corners of your mind. The Black Book by Gahan Wilson. Doran's fingers found the black book before the rest of him. They had cruised almost independently, groping from book to book after the manner of the fingers of collectors the world over, touching each book tentatively, but with skill, and when they felt the odd, almost furry spine of the black book, they had stopped quickly, as an owl's gaze halts on a mouse. He looked down at the book his fingers had discovered for him and carefully concealed any outward signs of the electric thrill which ran through him. Casually, studiously so, he took the black book from its place and languidly began to turn its pages. His eyes and fingers worked together now, taking in the peculiar softness of the skin pages, noting the heavy black type deeply indented into its sienna-splotched ochre background, touching and seeing the barbaric woodcuts of astrological signs and magic circles and imps and dark angels. Doran's heart began to beat with a thudding intensity which frightened him. He almost believed it might be audible to others. He could imagine its thumping carrying across the empty shop where the ears of old Steiner would perk and listen. But Steiner's back remained solidly turned, and Doran gave a strained smile at the fantasy. He closed the book and carefully slipped it back where he had found it. His head buzzed with schemes of confusion. A large black cat jumped soundlessly onto the stall, and Doran stroked it, thankful for the interruption. He felt the cat's back arch under his hand, and he attempted to consider his situation coolly. It was the sort of situation which never happened. People who didn't collect books, or who collected them only a little, always felt that they really might come across a Shakespearean folio, or a Gutenberg Bible, or, Doran swallowed, a black book such as this. A treasure. But it never happened. Old Steiner and his fellow book dealers saw to that. They would recognize a treasure when it came through the door, and they wouldn't put that book on a shelf. He glanced down at the book again, tore his eyes from it, and selected another one at random. The cat meowed pettishly, and he stroked it again to silence it. It wouldn't take a Steiner to spot the black book, thought Doran. This was no subtlety, no delicately flawed wonder, no first edition panted after only by certain esoterics. There was nothing obscure about this treasure. Its feel, its look, even the smell of it broadcast its singularity. The most ignorant clerk would have been sophisticated enough to at least strongly suspect the black book's value. He put down the book he'd been toying with, he couldn't even remember its title, and risked another inspection of his find. He pulled the black book back out from its shelf. Its absurd, its altogether ridiculous price was lightly penciled on its end page, $1.75. He almost gasped when he recognized Steiner's European 7 with its crossbar. That eliminated the idea of a blunder by a part-time assistant. The old man himself had priced it. Had he been drunk? It wasn't in character. But how on earth could the old man have come to make such a gigantic error? How could he have given the black book its grotesque price and condemned it to a common stall? Would he give challenge when Doran went over to buy the book? It seemed likely. The hideous mistake would be seen at once. A plausible explanation would be hastily presented, and the book would be out of Doran's hands forever. Forever, because Doran knew he would never be able to afford anything like its true cost. It was an item only for richly endowed libraries and millionaire collectors. The thing must be practically priceless. Doran turned to a carefully cut magic circle. Each minute detail was sharp and clear. It was important, he reflected wryly, not to make mistakes when you drew a magic circle. He had seen plenty of them before, of course. Every grimoire, every warlock's spell book contained at least one of them. The idea of the circle was central to the diabolist's art. But this one was, in some tingling way, different from any of the others. This one looked as if it might actually work. He closed his eyes and opened them again, like a man with a bad headache, and the shop seemed to rush in on him. It was as if he had been away in some far-off place for an immeasurable time, and only just returned. He looked down dazedly at the cat, and it looked up at him with green expectation in its eyes. Doran felt suddenly tired. He could not cope with the plots and plans which flashed through his mind. He saw himself gathering an armful of books and taking them up to Steiner, shuffling them before the old man's eyes like a magician with a pack of cards, burying the black book in a flurry of unimportant others. He imagined himself waiting until a rush of customers were at the dealer's desk, and then shoving the book hurriedly into view, giving him money, and going before the old man could properly take in what had happened. He seriously considered just slipping the book into his pocket and leaving without paying. He sighed. He could do any of these things. But in his present peculiar state of exhaustion, he felt he wouldn't be up to the simplest of them. For the first time in his life, he found himself a convinced fatalist. If it was to happen, it would happen, he decided. If it wasn't, then it wouldn't. He walked up to Steiner's desk with the black book in his hand. Doran noticed that he looked thin and haggard, as if he had been through a bad illness. Perhaps the dealer was sick. That might explain it. "Well, Mr. Doran, found something you want?" "Yes," said Doran. He put the book on the desk and pushed it toward the old man. Steiner opened it without curiosity and noted the price. $1.75, please, he said. And when Doran had given him the exact change, he said, "Thank you, Mr. Doran." Doran was shocked. He picked up the black book, knew it was now his, and was torn between the impulse to shout in triumph, or oddly, to cry in sorrow. He nodded at the old man and walked unsteadily through the bookshop. He paused at the door and blinked at the sunlight. It was too bright. It seemed unfriendly. He hunched his shoulders and went down the street, patting and stroking the book with his hands. Steiner watched him leave. When Doran had passed out of sight, the old man turned to look at the cat, which perched calmly on the stall where the black book had been. "All right," said Steiner wretchedly. "It's gone. Now you go." The cat smiled broadly at the old man. It was a horrible smile. It was bigger by half than the cat's small head. The teeth were thick, white, and pointed like a shark's. The cat leaped gracefully to the floor and, still grinning hugely, left the shop in stalk of Doran. Then the old man sagged in his chair, alone, completely alone, with the bleak awareness that he could finally breathe. He had finally rid himself of that demonic book and the cat that went with it.